Your job is not to lower the standard. Your job is to raise the standard. In this case, it's that you don't have staff who do ministry, they multiply ministry. That's the standard. But you've got to give them steps, and you've got to give them time to take those steps.
Welcome to the Breaking 1000 podcast. I've got Scott Wilson here and Hunter Wilson, and we're going to dive in. In a world where people are really honored for performance, it is difficult in the church world to move past performance and get to multiplying. But that's one of the key things that you've got to do as you head towards this 1,000 mark and even beyond. Talk a little bit about how we stepped into that journey.
Yeah, you're talking about, like, as a pastor, hiring staff, what we're doing. Well,
not just performers, but multipliers and what the difference is.
Yeah, because a lot of times you're thinking, like youth pastors are thinking, hey, I hired you as a youth pastor to minister to the youth, or I hired you as a worship pastor to sing. When really I'm asking you to become a leader of leaders is to do. Well, what was interesting is right at the beginning as pastor, not only did I need to come in and go, I was going, well, I don't know how to do this, because my dad was pastor and we're trying to break 1,000, and for 3 different times we got into the 900s and went back to 650. So it wasn't like when I became pastor I was thinking I got this all figured out. I just knew something needed to change, something needed to happen. So my first staff meeting, I went in and I said, hey guys, we've got to figure this out, how we're going to bust to 1,000, because this isn't working. And I think the biggest thing is we got to figure out what we need to do as a staff. So I drew on the board. I said, we're going to break 1,000. I already know God told me that our church. So I'm not saying that every church should break 1,000. I'm not saying like every healthy tree grows. Well, yeah, it grows to its fullness of what it was made to be. But some trees are taller than others, bigger than others. And so if your church, I just told them, I know our church is called to do that. I know we've been called to do that. So what do we need to do to get there? And so that's when I said, what do you guys think we can do as a staff? Do you think we can do that? And you were there.
Yeah, I was there, and I thought we were all pretty excited, and we felt like we could do it.
Yeah, but I know because there was people in the room. I don't know which one you said somebody said, I think we're as good as the staff across town, and they're at 1,200. I think we can do that. And I said, actually, I don't think we can do it. And I think it was a little insulting in the room.
But it was a little bit of a bubble burst.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody was mad, but we were kind of surprised that you were saying that. I think we were all going, yeah. Man, we can do it, and there's some external thing that's holding us back.
And like, how much did you know? Like, he was just waiting, like, for that punchline.
Yeah, I didn't know he had already been in the prayer closet. So I think he had already set it up. He knew where he was going on this.
I knew where I was going on there, but I didn't know exactly how it all was going to work out. In the room, but. I think we had a mentality, Hunter, back then. I don't know how much you've grown up with this with us, but back then it was almost like we're one move of God away, one revival away, a breakthrough, one prayer meeting away. We had read stories of Azusa and different things. So the whole reason why we haven't busted through is because we need to have a revival. When really I look back now and I said it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with our systems.
Well, because we had a bunch of revivals, and
we had
never been.
Kinds of revivals.
We'd gone up and down, and the revival hadn't gotten us there.
It reminded me of Jesus saying, "Hey, you can't pour new wine into old wineskins because the wine's going to break and you'll lose the wine." That's what we may have had new wine coming in, and all these people getting saved and revivals and stuff, but we couldn't keep them. We didn't know how to keep them. We didn't know how to take care of them.
And I interrupted you in your story. So you're basically saying you drew on the whiteboard. Basically, we need to break 1,000.
Yes.
And then, but I don't think we can.
Yeah. I said, I think we know how to do 650. And they said, why 650? And I drew a bucket on the screen, on the board, and put a hole there and like water falling out. And I drew 650. And I said, I think it's 650 because all 3 times we were at 900, we didn't go down to 550 or 750. All 3 times we went down to 650, which proves we know how to do 650.
That's what our systems are built for.
Yeah, our systems are perfectly working. And for 650.
Yeah.
That's the result we're getting. And so I said, and so that's on the board on this side. I said, so we're going to hit 1,000 and beyond. Remember when I drew the basketball goal on there?
Yep.
And I said, everybody's got to dunk. If you're going to be on this team, you got to dunk. It was a metaphor for saying
He said everybody's got to dunk, and all the jaws kind of dropped. What does that mean?
What are you talking about? Yeah. And I said, what I mean by that is we have to be able to hit this goal. And somebody in the room, I don't know if it's Dan or you or who it was, but said, I can dunk on an 8-foot. And I said, that's exactly what we're not going to do, is continue to lower the goal to what we know how to do. We have a goal here at 1,000. We've got to be able to hit that goal. And if everybody on this team can't do their part to do that, you can't be in the room.
It was pretty clarifying. Now that you're retelling this story, I can remember sitting there going, oh, I think today's going to be a new day. I think we're heading
Raising
in a
the
new
standard.
Yeah, this isn't going to be. We're not going to be able to kind of live under the illusion that, hey, we're just that one moment or magic bullet away from the breakthrough.
Yeah, I actually said something. I think that I look back now and I think it was a little mean. I probably shouldn't have said it the way I did, but I said, in fact, I'm telling everybody in the room right now, none of you are going to be in the room a year from now. And I think Mark,
he was landing all these one-liner bombs that we weren't used to.
Yeah,
staff meetings were a lot.
The emotions
different.
are coming back.
Yeah, and it's very clarifying though,
because I said, and they were all going like, that's not very motivating. Like, if you're saying that, then how is this going to even go? You know, like if we're not in the room, why are you talking to us? Are you just firing it? I said, it's either going to be a new you, or it's going to have to be somebody else, because it's got to be somebody who can dunk. And I said, let me describe what I mean by dunking. And then I wrote, let me tell you, there's 3 kinds of staff members. Number 1, there are workers. There are people who think in this room, I hired you to do ministry, to do the youth ministry, to do kids ministry, to do worship, to sing on Sunday. Let me tell you that that's not even biblical. And I said, let's look up Ephesians 4:11 and 12. And it says, he himself gave some to be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some teachers, to equip the saints for the work of the ministry. So who does the ministry? The saints.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be equipping them to do the ministry. So I marked out the word worker on the screen, on the board, and I said, hey, not going to happen. A year from now, we're not going to have any workers. So right now, you may be doing the ministry. You're not going to be doing it a year from now and being on this team. You'll either be doing the second level, which is equipping people for ministry, or you won't be on this team. So, but then let me tell you about equipping. You got a year to do equipping, but then you got to go to the third level. Let me tell you why. Because biblically, 2 Timothy 2:2 says, Paul says to Timothy, I'm teaching you things. What I want you to do is take what I've taught you and to give it to other men who are reliable and able to teach others. They're saying, I'm willing, I'm going to take what you taught me and I'm going to teach it to other people, which means you can't just be an equipper, a Paul to a Timothy, but you've got to be equipping people who are going to equip others, which means number 3, every staff member in the next 2 years here at our church, you're not going to be a worker. You're not just going to be an equipper. You got to be a leader of leaders. That's where we're going. You're not doing ministry. You're multiplying ministry. And then everybody's kind of looking. Do you remember this? What were you feeling in that?
Again, it was very clarifying. But I think the heart rates were up in the room because we had a broad kind of range of staff members and personalities and experiences. And I think everybody was having their different take on it, but there wasn't a lot of talk. We were very boisterous and talking a lot. Not in this moment. It was way more reflective.
But I think you probably had it more going on than anybody because you were in a mindset. I had been discipling you. You had been discipling other people. Yeah. And so I think out of everybody in the room, you were already doing it.
Well, I didn't know how to not do it like that. And so what you were talking about was doing what had already been being executed over the time that you guys have been training me. So
I think maybe what is like getting people's heart rate up is because you're creating a new paradigm shift of what good sounds like, right? For their role. Because I mean, for almost anybody in any organization, especially if you're raised in a culture inside of America, it's like, I need to be a specialist.
Right.
Like I got to be good at the performance of my role.
Yeah.
And you're trying to say now, look, good does not sound like being good at your job, like doing the work. It is by
now
leading
I'm
other
telling
people.
you know what specialist is? I want you to be a leader. who develops leaders. That's the kind of specialist I want in every department.
I wonder too, like just for people that are in there, like how do you think, and maybe you had like conversations outside of that meeting, is it scary to think like if I equip volunteers and other people to do the work that I'm not going to have a job. Like, what do I do if I train up other people? And
Well, people actually ask that. And I said, well, let me tell you something. At least here, as long as God will allow me to have you, like if God's calling you somewhere else, that's one thing.
Sure.
But there ain't nobody that's going to be working themselves out of job here, because if you work yourself out of youth ministry, I'll put you as an executive pastor. I mean, if you did worship, if you know how to train others, you'll always have a job here, because that's the one thing that God's called us to do, is make disciples, and not just make disciples, but make disciples who do ministry and train others to do ministry. If you're doing that, I want you here no matter what position it is.
Yeah.
Now, in the room, I think people were still struggling on the dunking deal. I think even somebody was bold enough, it may have been Mark, says, well, I don't see you dunking. Like I can't dunk. Well, yeah, in the metaphor, I can't dunk. And I said, well, let me tell you, here's the point. I'm not telling you you've got to be able to jump and dunk. I'm just telling you got to take the steps and dunk. And they're all looking at me like, and I drew stairs to the rim. My granny can dunk if she can take stairs. My mama can dunk if she can take stairs. And so I'm building the stairs. My responsibility. So this is what I even tell lead pastors now who are talking about breaking 1,000. Your job is not to lower the standard. Your job is to raise the standard. In this case, it's that you don't have staff who do ministry. They multiply ministry. That's the standard. But you've got to give them steps, and you've got to give them time to take those steps.
Yeah.
So I drew 3 different steps. And on the first step, I said, this year you will become a model of what it looks like to be a growing leader who disciples other people. Okay, this is what it will look like. So you need to grow. So that had to do with what books do we need to read, what podcasts we need to listen to, all this. What do you need to do to grow yourself? Why is that so key? Because who wants to be mentored by somebody who isn't growing?
Yeah.
So I'm not even going to attract people. Why would you come into our ministry and then say, I'm going to move out of my job and what I was doing to move into the church to be discipled by you if you didn't think I had something you wanted?
Yeah. And we were getting out of the hope mentality. Hey, we hope we're going to grow. We hope we're going to develop. We hope we're going to become. And it was getting way more into we've got to be able to illustrate this.
Yes.
And this becomes part of our responsibility.
So tell me this, like, how do you mean this so literally that the only responsibility I have is to train up other people? Or like in the last episode that we just talked about, we were talking about job descriptions. We talked about 365. So every job description has 3 goals, 6 responsibilities, and 5 team values, the characteristics that it takes to be on mission here.
Good point.
I think two of the things I want to clarify this, because I want to say, like, what do you mean literally, and what do you mean like as like a statement, as an emphasis, right? Because what you just clarified is one of the team values that you said is like, you need to be a learner. Like, who wants to learn from something that isn't growing? Another thing is you are a leader of leaders, right? That is another kind of like the characteristics of the team here. But if I'm a youth pastor, right? Do you mean this so literally that the only job description I had that I keep is I need to train up leaders and I have a volunteer that preaches on Wednesdays? Or is that just one of my responsibilities that I have to train up people, and I can only do what I can do? Like, just like you said, is like, out of the 30 things that I could be doing, what are the 5 or 6 things? What do you think?
Thank you. You're so brilliant, son, to ask me that clarifying question. So let me tell you this. I'm not saying this is a new thing to do. I'm saying this is a new way of thinking about everything that you do. So when I'm preaching in the standpoint of not just trying to get something across. I'm trying to teach them how to teach others what I'm teaching them. I'm trying to give them notes, ways, and even, hey, who can you share this with this week? I'm doing leadership training where I'm teaching them and asking them to start teaching. I mean, it's a mentality. When I'm raising up volunteers, I'm teaching them how to disciple others. It's that in everything that I'm doing it with this leadership development thought in mind. It's how I function. It's who I become. So that's why I was making it such an emphasis, is because you can do ministry like as in, I did a sermon, but you're not thinking about what's the outcome of that sermon in their lives and how they're functioning. You can do small groups, or you can do it where I'm trying to raise up other small group leaders. I not only have a leader of that small group, but I've got somebody who's an apprentice that they're teaching. So it's how you do everything you do.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this too, I love what Donald Miller talks about is there's everybody that thinks of themselves as either the hero of the story or the guide.
Yeah.
Right? You're Luke Skywalker or you're Yoda. And when everything you do is, I'm not the hero here, I'm the guide. I'm trying to train up who's next. I think it just shifts everything of like, you are the hero. I'm trying to lift you up. I'm trying to raise you up. Go ahead.
In a biblical sense, it's Samuel and David. Which one do you want to be in the story where Samuel comes to David and says, hey, you're the one God's picked to be king, even though you're a shepherd boy, and I'm calling that out. In most people's lives, they're going like, God, yes, Lord, let me be the king. Do that. You know what? I get excited. I want to be Samuel. That's the leader mindset, is I'm not the David who's the David of this youth ministry or this worship ministry. I'm the Samuel looking around going, I see something great in you. Yeah. Come on, I see something great in you. That's a leader of leaders who's saying, I want everybody around me to be the hero.
And I think a lot of this, Dad, and maybe we can do this as a final thought, I think it makes so much sense as like metaphorically, like I feel like God gave you a dream that is like the primary foundation of your life. And I think that's a great way to end this, is the mentality that you have and how you see the world. Why don't you share that dream?
Well, and it plays out. Let me just finish this out and then do it, because the stairs, I only got to the first step. The second and the third is from the modeling, is the next year. I said, you got a year to grow in that. So you got to give them time. The second is you got a mentor. So I asked them to grab 5 people in their ministry that were like their top leaders and to pour into them everything that I had been teaching them that next year. And the third year was multiplication. Those are the 3 steps to get to that dunk. And I think every pastor needs to think beyond just I'm growing, but I'm mentoring a few people that I see select, like Jesus picking disciples.
Yeah.
And then the disciples had an assignment to go make disciples. That's how we do it.
Yeah. And a quick plug on this is that your Ready, Set, Grow book really dives deep into this whole thing that you're talking about.
Tells the whole story and tells you how to implement this. So Ready, Set, Grow, you can get that book. Now, in my 20s, I got to be honest with you, this is before all this happened with it. I started with wanting to be the David, not the Samuel. I wanted to be the king. I wanted to be the hero. I wanted to be a giant in the kingdom. You know, like I want to be awesome for God. You know, it's more like I want to be awesome for God. You know, and that type of. And then I was saying, God, tell me what's the vision? What's the calling of my life? What have you called me to do? Then one night in my mid-20s, I had a dream. And in this dream, I'm preaching this outdoor crusade type deal on this platform like you would see on TV or whatever, and a massive crowd. And people are getting healed and touched and saved and all this. And there's this wooden podium in front of me that people could see me like on screens or whatever, or see me from like my waist up, but they couldn't see behind the podium, like waist down. I looked down in the dream and there was a cutout hole in the platform where I was standing, and my dad was standing there in that hole, and I was standing on his shoulders, and his hands were around my ankles like this, and he was praying for me. And in the dream, I could see like tears coming down. He's praying in the spirit for me, and I was standing on his shoulders. And the Lord spoke to me in the dream and said, to everybody else, it looks like you're standing on a platform that you built for yourself, but in reality, you're standing on the shoulders of your Father. And when I woke up, I said, God, I'm going to call Dad in the morning and tell him thanks for his shoulders and tell him the story, but why did you show me that? And I felt like the Lord told me, he said, because your life and ministry will not be defined by the platforms you stand on, but by those who stand on your shoulders. And so the very definition of success for my life shifted in that moment, from being somebody who's on the mic to somebody who hands out mics, from somebody who's the focal point of ministry to the one who's saying, I see you, come on, I can train you, I can help you fulfill your vision. Instead of people being the machinery to accomplish my vision, They were the vision, and my job was to help them to find it and fulfill it.
Wow, that's a powerful way to end this today. Super awesome having you guys join us. And if you have a question, we love teeing those questions up on our podcast. You can send us your question to hey@readysetgrow.church, and we'll look forward to talking about that on a future podcast. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Hunter. We'll see you guys soon.